Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members and guests. It's November the 20th, 2023, and this is a regular online meeting of the West Shore Photography Club. We have an image review tonight. We have 21 images, but before we get to that, before I forget, let me take a moment just to wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving holidays. Our next online meeting will be Monday, December the 4th, and well, I'll just turn it over to Joe and he'll explain what that meeting is going to be about and talk about trips, past and future. Joe, it's all yours.
Okay. I didn't look up that meeting, but it is that is Kurt Budlinger, and it's going to be, he's a landscape photographer, and he's going to talk about using a wide angle lens, which is very difficult for a lot of people like me to be able to use that effectively. And he's sort of an expert on that because his mentor was Ian Plant, and Ian Plant, if you know him, it is landscape photography. I mean, if he is, like, for instance, if he is a half of an inch away from the rock, I mean, that's like, well, that's pretty far away for him. Okay. So that should be a real good educational session. I'm really looking forward to that one. And I think, David, you have you mentioned something that was an exhibit down in Dorothea Lange.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah. Briefly, the National Gallery of Art is now hosting an exhibit of Dorothea Lange's work through March. It's titled Dorothea Lange's Seeing People, and there are a number of portraits and shows the course of her social activism. And as I was just mentioning, I was familiar with Dorothea Lange more on her photographs of the migrants and the Depression. But she's also been pretty active in championing the cause of the Japanese Americans who were really, I guess you would say, unjustly interred in World War II, as well as other social causes. And the book is available even now on the exhibit. You don't have to go to the National Gallery of Art to get it. It's on Amazon. It's called Dorothea Lange, Seeing People.
Okay, great. Thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
And speaking of that, this is a little out of order, but Mike, can you give us a preview of a trip we're going to have in December on down to Susquehanna? Mike, are you there? Mike Donovan?
Susquehanna Art Museum, right in, I owe myself $5. Susquehanna Art Museum has a display of, and I will pronounce it Deanne Arbus because I've heard Deanne and Diane, but Deanne Arbus photographed what people would call the fringes of society. And she did this in the 60s when things like transvestites were hidden in the shadows, and she photographed circus clowns and circus freaks and nudist camps and you name it. If you can think of it on the fringes of society, she did it. And at those days when she did it, it was shocking. But she presented these people as people. So that's up now at the Susquehanna Art Museum. And she's a big name in the history of photography. And I think it cost us $5 to get in and see it, or $8 or something like that. So we are going to set up a trip for December, possibly January, to go over and see that and talk about why she did what she did and a little bit about her history.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And they also have an exhibit there from Lancaster County of barbershops. And that was real interesting too. So we got a couple things to see there. That's great. Thank you. Miss Mary Fox, how about our trip on Saturday to the zoo?
The zoo, Saturday was, it was beautiful and it was bright, and the light was a little harsh at times, but I think there were I counted about 10 people, maybe some came later, but the animals were out. A lot of them were on perches sleeping. I don't know if they were just cold or some of them were hiding, but they eventually came out, and there were quite a few. You know, they had the porcupines and the lynx. We had to look for them, but they eventually came out. And some of the wolves, I think there were three, and two of them were sleeping, and one of them made his way up and sort of like posed a few times for us, and a lot of birds and owls. And if you go indoors, there was some snakes and some alligators or crocodiles. And it was very interesting, and there was a lot of foliage too. And everybody seemed to have a really good time, and they were having like using long lenses and their normal lenses. And I just think it was a good day, a really good day.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
We have a trip coming up on December the 2nd to Scarehart Machinery, and Dennis Baker was going to be leading that, and you'll get some notices on it. And that's old equipment, and it's a massive field of equipment that you want to photograph. And then on Saturday, December the 9th, we're going to be going to the Rolls-Royce and Bentley Museum. And Norbert Fry is going to be leading it. We did that last year, and that was really well received. You would get really neat shots of different details of the vehicles. And so that's going to be on December the 9th. And then coming up, which we don't have exact dates yet on it, but we have commitments. We're going to be going to an old mill, much like Anderson Mill, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do that in the springtime, and we're going to go to this mill. It's Heisman's a mill, and we were there today, and it's a really good location. And we're going to be doing the state capital trip. We're working on those exact dates right now. That'll be during the week. And we're also going to be going to do an industrial site. We're going to be going to Maple Press, where they manufacture on high-speed equipment. Like, think of in a factory where they have Campbell soups coming down, and that's what they have with books, and it's a huge facility. So we're going to be photographing inside there, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we have other trips that we're working on, but those are the ones that are on the calendar for right now. Any questions on those, or anybody have any other ideas of some venues that we might want to consider?
Are those put on the website?
They don't go on the website. They go on the emails that come out. And so when we, like, for instance, tomorrow, when we get the email from today, it'll list a couple of those where we have confirmed dates, but others, it's such a fluid thing. We don't put the dates out in advance too much because there's always changes. And so we don't have long-term dates out.
Yeah, as soon as we get the details confirmed on each trip, then we put out a promotional email.
Yeah. So, very good. Dennis?
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Joe and the trips committee. I mean, the level of activity has been pretty incredible. We've got so many things going on that a number of people have commented to both Joe and myself about the activity level of our club. So we appreciate that and appreciate your participation. Okay, it's time to turn it over to Mike Donovan. We have an image review tonight. He's going to take care of it. 21 images, and the theme is reflections. Go for it, Mr. Eagle. Okay, Mike, are you talking and we just can't hear you? Or are you still muted?
Mike, are you muted?
Hey, Mike Donovan, speak to us.
Mike.
I'll start all over again. How about
Thank
now?
you.
Okay, we
Yeah.
can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yep.
$10.
And
I decide that.
we can see the announcement page. That looks great, Mike.
Okay, we good to go.
We're
Yes.
good to go.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the first one is called Warp and Woof, which I actually had to look up the reason why. It is a set of weaving terms, which makes the title very, very sensible here because it actually looks like a bit of weaving going on. The things that I liked about it were the title. Usually I don't, titles are usually a struggle for me to come up with, but this is a cool one. Nice and sharp. the sky falls away because the values are darker. And those are the good things about it. One thing I would suggest is with the processing is mask a little bit carefully over here. Can you see the cursor?
Yes.
Okay. Mask a little bit more carefully here, unless you wanted those to look a bit foggy. It looks like the sky replacement also has clouds over that. I could be completely wrong, but that's a suggestion. I also might suggest back off of the strength of the sky a little bit too. That way the building will approach more, the sky will fall back a little more, and because the building is the star of the show here. As far as what's called the wow factor, you're creating a lot of interest with all the shapes, the warm colors, the cool colors. Your exposure and your focus is good, and the composition I like. It's triangular, which usually works out well. There's even a little one over here, so the composition is good. You've got a little one here, and all kinds of lines and shapes, and just like the weaving would be. It also is kind of cool how you can see it going around the corner because of the perspective that you use. So that's really good there too. As far as any distractions, the only one for me is that the sky is a little bit strong, I think. So maybe try and back off of that a little bit, less saturation, see what you think. And by the way, these are suggestions. If you think they're ridiculous, that's certainly your right. And if you try it and it doesn't do what you want it to, you're the artist, you're in charge there. The lighting is strong and harsh, but you used it to your advantage. Because as you can see, the warm colors are really alive. And part of that is because they are juxtaposed against cool colors. And you know by now that like the orange-blue combination creates a stronger look in both. And that may be why I think that the sky is approaching a little bit too much strength, because of the orange up against it. That kind of thing really does work. But I do like your use of the warm and cool colors against each other. As far as being creative, it's proof that you have an eye, that you're looking when you go places and do things. That's one of the gifts of photography. It's also one of the curses of photography for the people that have to walk along with you. So, good capture there. As far as any post-processing goes, really over here is the only thing that I would bring to your attention. I think everything else looks strong. The composition's good. The use of color is good. So that's really my only suggestion. Who's the photographer here?
That would be me, Elaine Shook. Thanks for your comments. The sky replacement, first of all, it is a replacement. The original sky, as you said, the light was very, very bright and very harsh. And the original sky, though it had some nice puffy clouds in it, the clouds were blown out. So it just looked like big white doughboy blobs in the sky. So I put the replacement in there. And as a result of that, it did kind of create that fog look over those distant buildings. And I left it that way because I kind of liked the implication that there was a little bit of smog back there.
Okay.
And in fact, there was. I could lighten up on that a bit, no doubt. I'll play with that to make it look not quite so obvious. But I thought that it helped create a little more depth to the picture by leaving it somewhat foggy. The reference to warp and woof, the literal definition of that does have to do with weaving, the horizontal and the vertical threads that weave together to make a fabric. But my reference was more metaphorical. It's often applied to old and new or past and present. And to me, this image was very symbolic of the old and the new architecture in New York City, which is what I love most about that city. And it becomes very apparent that the two buildings, they're integrated, they coexist beautifully in that city. Without that, you kind of lose the interest. I love the old, I love the new, but I love them together most of all. And the reflection in this building, it was so vivid. It almost appeared that the old buildings were bursting at the seams and making a statement, something like, we are immortal. We are not going to die. You're not going to you're not going to abandon us as you build new buildings, but we are rather the foundation of advancements in modern architecture in this city. And I actually did not have to increase the saturation or the color intensity in those buildings. The light was such that they just stood out and slapped me in the face like that. So I couldn't resist making it a little more dramatic. And this image is actually a composite. If you look to the left, the vertical stripes in the building are actually the same image, but I used the transformation tool to straighten those lines.
Yes, I see it here.
Yeah, when you straighten those lines in a picture like this, it becomes very boring. But I liked what it did when I layered it underneath the original image, which I actually kind of I increased the angle of it, but it creates more triangles. The lower with the upper created some more interesting triangles. So that's how I did that.
Well, now that I know you were going also for the old and the new, having these faded out makes more sense too. That they're hopefully losing their spot to somebody who's been there for 150 years.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I learned something about warp and woof too.
I will play with the sky though and cut that back a little bit so it's not quite so dramatic. I think it might detract from the building itself.
Okay, see what you think. Okay, Texas backwater. I like the composition and I like your use of color. One thing that I would consider is running it through some kind of noise reduction software. If you have a little time to look it over at home, you'll see that there's some, not just graininess, but a little bit of color noise. And if you run that through a noise reduction, I think that may help, unless you're going for the grit, in which case you can tell me to mind my own business. As far as what's called the wow factor, I like the colors here working together. Very, very good. Technically, again, the noise, I would consider, well, try it. Try running it through a noise reduction software. If you don't like it, if you like the grit, keep it like this. Good composition. Some people would say, well, this thing here is ridiculous. Well, it isn't, because it's part of what there is there. Now, you could take it off, but then these would sit there by themselves. So I see no problem with this at all. Plus, it adds depth. You have a foreground, you have a middle ground, and you have a background, which if you've heard my image reviews before, you know that layers help a person work their way through, like this layer, this, and this. They really do work. And over here is just a little bit of a splash, which is kind of cool. A couple people over there fishing, and everything else is kind of abandoned looking. So very good there. Let's see. There was one, oh, I know. I wanted to mention the lock and this. Now, it's in the foreground, and these light values will come forward. So you can leave it like that, or try taking the lock out, because it's a little bit harsh, a little bit bright. I don't want it to take away the attention that should go here. And away we go into the image. So I like the composition. I like the softness of the light. It's like the overcast day is the world's biggest softbox. Again, the green and red complementary colors. They always look good together. They make each other look better. So good work there. As far as what's like creativity, probably 1,000 people walk by this or at it, or those fishermen or people that live there, and never saw the beauty of it. But you did. One thing I would consider in post-processing is, if you have any room here, drop your crop down a little bit so we can get the whole beginning of the ramp to lead you in there, because that ramp plays an important role, as does this one, as far as leading lines go. But my main suggestion is try the noise reduction or try the grit. See which you like the best. Okay? Who's the photographer here?
Hi, it's Sue McGuire.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. So yeah, I think it's an older photo, and I think at one point I did probably add some grit.
Okay. So you can tell me to mind my own business then.
I'll see if I can get rid of I didn't realize there was color noise in there that's distracting. So I'll see if I can run it through some software that exists now. I did, that lock bothered me a little bit too, and I did burn it a little bit, but obviously not enough. So yeah, I can probably just completely remove it.
Yeah, wipe it out. See if you think that helps.
Yeah, and the only way I can get anything more of that, what's it called?
The front of the ramp. Oops.
The front of the ramp. Yeah, the ramp was the word I was looking for. It would be to use AI or something. So I don't know. See if Photoshop's generative AI will
do
the trick.
Well,
But
this
yeah,
gives me
all I had, and it's in Texas. I can't go back there and take it.
understood. Well, it's a good reason to go back, maybe.
I don't know where this was. I was working in Texas at the time, and I was just sort of wandering around. So I probably wouldn't even know how to get back there.
Well, that brings up another good point that I remind myself to do a lot, is shoot looser than you think you need to. Because you can always crop to where you want. Now, I used to say, but you can't add it on. Well, now you can add it on,
Right.
because of the generative stuff. But I try to remind myself to shoot looser, leave room for me to crop to what I want. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, good suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, I'm going to interject for just a second. I want to let you know it's 7:23 and we have 19 images to go.
So I need to shut up and get moving. Okay, here's number 3, water everywhere. What did the photographer do well? You used your imagination. And that's where art comes from. It starts as an idea in somebody's head. In post-processing, what could we do, or what would I think about doing? One thing I would think about doing is wiping out this cone shape above the guy's head so that it's one figure. I know this is on the back and on the wall in the back, but take that off and see if you think that helps to create more of a silhouette kind of look. It's a great, as far as the wow factor, really, really good, really a great idea. The composition is really also quite good. you put these on what's called a PowerPoint on the rule of thirds, or a couple people used, it looks like they use the golden mean, and it just curls right around to there. So your composition is great. You've got repetition here. Your combination of the water and the floor is the tables are really quite good. I also like how the warm colors draw your attention right to here. And you can see here and here are the strongest values. So your eye will go to the contrast, and that's where you want it to go. Your post-processing is good. The lights are even fine. They lead right to the people. It's got a grit to it. I'm looking close. There is a little bit of color noise again, but you can remove only color noise and let the texture there. So keep that in mind. Okay, who did this one?
That one's mine. Terry Longenecker. I'm sorry, I've got strep throat and I'm having a hard time talking. That was taken on a cruise ship. The water that you see to the left, that was how high the water was up. And when I shot, we had to wear life vests inside.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a composite.
No, it was. I shot it through the glass of the doors, and I got all of that. I never expected it.
Phew.
It was a wild night, believe me.
Yeah. Dennis,
Everybody-
I hope you're paying attention to this.
We had to put. We were having a hurricane pushing us from the back, and one coming at the right, and we were going up and down and sideways, even with the bow planes out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It
now,
was
Terry,
a wild night.
explain to me again what we're seeing. I'm just not quite sure.
Well, what you're seeing is the reflection. I'm shooting for the water, and that's what you
Where
see.
are you standing?
What everything inside was reflected on the glass.
So you're standing outside.
Oh no, you weren't allowed outside. I wouldn't be here if you were outside.
So where were you standing?
I was standing in front of the doors, and I shot to try and get the water line, and I got all this. It was just dumb luck.
So the view of the water is being reflected from behind you?
No,
From in front.
in front. That's what you see when you're looking out the glass doors. The water is coming at you, and then the other stuff was reflected in the door. That was weird.
Okay, yeah.
That was one shot.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Okay, cloudy day. You have a good composition here. Your exposure's good. It's nice and sharp. One thing I kind of struggled with the horizon line. I wasn't sure if it went upward or not. I even got a ruler out and checked. So if I can't tell from that close, then it must be my eyes. But do that yourself. Check and make sure your horizon is straight. The wow factor is good. Your focus is really good, nice and sharp. As I said, your exposure is good. There's detail everywhere in the light and in the dark, and that's a good thing. The composition is a classic rule of thirds, which is always comfortable for a viewer to use, to look at. The light is, again, you're taking a stronger light and making it work for you. The color, the orange and blue thing, it's incredible how much you see that in nature. Cool colors up against warm colors. It's amazing. You have no blowout. You have no blocked up shadows. Your composition, as I said, is good. It's a good shot. It's a good shot. I'm guessing you're in Yellowstone, but we'll find out. Who took this one?
Hi, Marlene McNamara. I was at the Grand Prismatic in
All
Yellowstone.
right.
And I'll try to see if I can do anything with the horizon. I thought I did automatic on it because I couldn't, I didn't know for sure. And I want to thank you for your review.
You're welcome. Well, it could be that my chair's crooked too. Okay. The lighting on this is really good on Big Bottle. The detail is also excellent. Very good work there. One thing I might suggest is if you're going to do still life, and especially with glass, try a diffuser. You don't have to go out and buy a diffuser. You can use, tissue paper. You get it at Michael's. You can use a really, really thin sheet. Try a couple different diffusers and see what you think. That will help with your hot spots here, which it's almost impossible not to get them on glass. I understand that, but you can see how they jump out because the values are totally bright and the eye goes to contrast. I also might suggest with your crop, again, shoot loose, then you can crop to where you want. So you're a little tight on top and a little tight on the bottom, at least for me anyway. Let's see. I mentioned the exposure was good. The composition's good. On the top right, you have some kind of a little reflection here, and I know it's reflections, I understand that, but I would clone this out and get rid of that. Your lighting is actually nice. It's a little strong on the glass, but again, that's really hard to avoid. The warm and cool thing with the greenish here, the orangish here, warm and cool colors always are just great together, in my opinion. It's a creative thing. We don't get many still lives, or at least I don't when I'm doing the reviews, so good effort there. Your black is black except for this up here, so you have it cleaned up pretty well. On black, you really look for spots for sure. So my main suggestions are more room on top and bottom. Make sure that you're straight, and you have a few items here to get rid of. Other than that, it's a great idea. Your lighting's good. Who did this one?
Let's see. David Fischel, can you come on board? I think you're with us tonight. Can you unmute yourself, please? Let's see. Okay, no response. So Mike, move forward, please.
Okay, number 6 is Death Reflected. What you did well was it's nice and sharp. It's absolutely, as you can see, loaded with detail. One thing that a suggestion is, again, shoot looser. And if you do that, then you won't have these little interferences as you work your way out around. So shoot a little looser and then crop to where you want. You can shoot a lot looser and crop to where you want in the world of digital for sure. So the way, since it's like that, the way I would get away from that is I would clone a little bit off the end of this, maybe there too. But what happens is this is your topic, your idea, and the eye wants to travel all the way down, but then it leaves. So if you can stop that up here somewhere, the eye won't have a way to get out of your image without exploring it. And there's plenty there to explore for sure. Okay, your focus is good, a lot of details. The top half is a little bit high key, but you may have wanted it that way because the bottom and the top are differentiated even by values of light. Your tree is nice and straight. The lighting, as I said, was strong. The blue and the orange again. You can see it right here. It's everywhere, really. It's a great color combination of complementary colors, which are one cool and one warm, opposite on the color wheel. Maybe some more contrast up here would help, but that's completely up to you. I'm suggesting it because that'll pull out even more detail, and it won't have this washed out kind of look, because look how strong this is from the water reflecting. So maybe you want to try and get a little more contrast, or even a little more vibrance, because vibrance pulls contrast out of things that aren't contrasty. So maybe you want to try that. Okay, whose is that one?
Rich Scar. Thanks for your comments.
You're welcome.
I agree. I see everything you said is right. Yeah, I played with the sky and got real lazy because I didn't I couldn't mess around with it. I was trying to get a little more color in there if I could, but didn't succeed in do that. Yeah, and I see those branches now coming out. I thought they were good leading lines, but they do lead the eye off the page, off the.
They are good leading lines. They're too good, actually.
They lead into eternity. Yeah, I shot this, by the way. I shot this in Lakeland, Florida, at one of Joe's, I think, favorite places. He's got beautiful pictures of this place on his website, and like a number of people, I'm a Joe wannabe. So yeah, I like it. Thanks, Mike, for your comment.
You're welcome. Maybe darken these two down a little bit also, because they're close in value to this. So
yeah, good
pull
point.
each other out.
Good point.
Just some ideas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, number 7 is mountains and water. Your choice for a panorama was absolutely perfect. You're using layers very, very nicely. And I like this little catch for the eye down here, the little building. One thing that a suggestion I have for you is, and there were a couple of these like this that were involved in pixelation, which means you made the picture bigger than what it really should have been, and it'll start to pull the picture to the point that you can actually see the little tiny squares that digital images are made of. So be careful with that. A suggestion would be to always go at 300 dots per inch. Let's see, your composition is good. Again, the pixelation keeps you from having a sharp image. Your lighting is nice and crisp. And again, you have the blue-orange combination that you're using. That's good. It's, as I said, a good idea to try a panorama with this one. So try it again, redo it at about 300 dots per inch, and then you'll be able to make it as big as you want to. What happens is a lot of times when it comes out of the camera, it comes out as 72 dots per inch, and people forget to up that or change it or whatever. So keep that in mind. But your composition's good, your use of color is good, and the panorama's good. Who did this one?
That's me, Judy. This was on the way from Breckenridge out towards the west to Crested Butte. And it just seemed like the right opportunity. I'm glad you mentioned the buildings because I left them there on purpose. There were a few cluttery kind of things there that I took out, and pixelation, I know nothing about that. This is my first panorama, okay? My first one. So I was pretty happy, with it. So I'm glad to know about this pixelation because that's totally new to me. So that's something I can do in post?
Yes, actually you can. When it comes out of the camera, many times it's, like I said, at 72 dots per inch, which means or pixels per inch. So there'll be 72 pixels in each square inch.
Okay.
And that's not enough to make a big print because you can start to see the actual squares. A pixel is a square.
Okay, right.
These pictures are made out of little squares, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know about pixels. I just didn't know about all the rest that you talked about. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, check into that.
Okay, I will.
Because it's a great image.
Judy, can you tell us how many photos you used to
there were 6.
6 photos. Okay,
That
thank you.
was 6 photos. Yep.
Well,
It
you
was a
got
lot of fun.
you got real potential there.
It was a lot of fun, and I was so pleased. It was very easy to do. I did it in Lightroom. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Sure. Oh, of course. It's a beautiful day for a race. You got rich colors, that's for sure. And all the jackets and the trees and all that kind of thing. So really good there. One thing I might suggest is a little bit tighter crop on the bottom. Then you won't have this fighting, these little tiny triangles fighting for the eye. And maybe even take a little bit of the brightness off here, so more of the attention goes here, because I use the word value a lot. And for value, try to picture it in black and white. And this will be way lighter than this. So this will attract more attention than this. And I'm thinking here is where you want everybody to look. So maybe you want to darken this down a little bit and do maybe a little tighter crop. See how that works for you, because you've got color galore. You've got this beautiful, deep, rich red. You even have hired a couple people to wear red jackets and hats that day so that you have some nice pop there. Perfect. I was going to say, I think the bridge is going downhill, but the top's going uphill. The thing's over 100 years old, so it goes wherever it wants to, actually. Let's see. A couple of the images I noticed could be sharper. Now, it might be because we're looking at it on screens. And when you look at it at home, it's nice and sharp. But I do want to mention that sharpness is important, and especially in an image like this with a lot of detail. Your composition is good. You're not directly cut in half, which is nice. You've got more bridge than river, so we know that the bridge is important. You have a lot of different shapes there, lots of triangles, lines, diagonal lines, a good mix of geometry there. I like the use of your color. Again, you have lots of red there. Very nice. And you have some creativity there. You must have waited until the whole group came by. So good work there. And if you didn't, then you got a good grab shot. Okay, who did this one?
This one's from Mary Eileen.
All right.
And thank you for your comments, especially that post. Yeah, that post, the bridge post is far too bright there. But yeah, I had to do a lot of maneuvering because I wanted to get those red trees. I really liked them. I thought they're especially nice the way they reflected in the water.
Yes.
And yeah, I took a whole bunch of shots, kept waiting for just the right size group to go over the bridge to try to get a lot of emphasis on the runners on the bridge. But yeah, thank you for your comments.
You're welcome. Red-winged blackbird number 9. The vertical format, of course, works absolutely perfectly for this. The catch light in the eye looks really good. I was thinking maybe a tiny bit more space above and below the log, but that's nitpicking on a shot like this. And believe it or not, this is a triangular composition, and they generally look good. Wow factor is excellent. It's a beautiful bird, especially in flight, but it's a beautiful bird. Again, maybe slightly looser crop, but that's a picky thing. I like the triangles, and I also like how the shoulder colors kind of match the patch on the stump. How the scratch out is kind of reminiscent of the shoulder patch of color. Let's see. As far as distractions go, the only thing I would consider would be these couple of dots here. Now, I realize they were actually there, but again, the value is what's important, and they're pretty bright value compared to the rest. So think about that, especially these, because the eye is drawn to a contrast. So just think about that. Try it and see what you think. Nice, even overcast lighting, which gave you the perfect day to show detail in this black. Because photographing something black is not always easy to show detail. So good work there. I like that it's warmer on the actual bird than it is on the reflection. So you have a bit of a warm and cool thing. You can see, if you think about it, how blue the reflection is on the bottom compared to how orange and brown it is on top. So very, very nice. Again, detail in the black. It's a great shot. Who did that one?
That's Ron Maddox. I did that one, Mike.
Yeah, it's nice.
Thanks. It was a beautiful gray day. Perfect for taking this kind of shot.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Mike.
Yep.
For everybody. One thing that's interesting about, well, two things that are interesting about reflections is, one, the reflection's always slightly darker than the original image. And number two, some people think that the reflected image is identical, but a mirror of the original. And this is a very good example that that's not always true. You see the top part, the original, you see the part, the land behind the bird, the green part behind its tail. And in the bottom, you don't see that.
Right.
So you can sometimes take advantage of that to make a very interesting image where the mirror or the reflection is not a replica of the original.
Right. Very true, because you have a water line here and a water line here. So that you're right, that makes it throws off the symmetry.
Yes.
There's two of me. One thing I really like about the composition is you gave the duck some room to move into, to swim into, which means it's not leaving the frame, which always helps. I put a note here, dots or no dots. They're there, and their value is not anywhere close to the value of this or this. So that's one reason that they aren't so offensive, because they fade back. The value puts them back, so it actually helps with depth in this case. I would consider at least give a try to sharpening the eye. It looked a little soft, like your best focus is right here. And it looks like you used a, F4, maybe F2.8, because we're soft here, which is fine. Sharp here and soft here. So your field of focus is really small. So take a little sharpening brush and sharpen that eye. You can see a difference between the tail and the eye because the bird's at a 45-degree angle, it looks like. So sharpen that up a little bit. Let's see. The water's super creamy and soft. I really do like that. Your composition is good. Again, the dots can stay because they're floating on the water. Their value isn't so strong that they come flying up out of the picture into your face. They stay in the back where they belong. Again, overcast lighting, it helps with detail in the whites and the blacks, and you have detail in the whites and the blacks. The color is rich, but it's not garish. The post-processing looks good. Who did this one?
That'd be me, Jim Browlinger. Thanks for the comments, Mike. There was something on the water that created all those dots. All my
I'm sure
pictures from that photo shoot, they were there. I will sharpen the eye. I can see what you're talking about now that you pointed out. I thought I took this with my 200 to 500, but it could have been at 70 to 200, which would explain the shallow depth of field. So,
okay.
Thank you for the comments.
You're welcome. Norway Barn and Boathouse. Absolutely awesome exposure. I mean, it is on the button. The focus is nice and sharp. The composition is good. Really, the only comment or question that I have, and it's because this is reflections, is I wasn't able to connect this reflection with something up above. So I would wipe this out because it's got no causation up here. This is probably part of the forest, and this might be too, but this is connected to the roof, right where the two join. So check that out. See how you like it without it or with it. It's you're the artist. The colors are rich. It has the teeniest, tiniest glow or Orton on it, which makes it look just a touch dreamy, painterly almost, but yet there's sharp detail, which is kind of nice when you can have both for sure. The buildings are placed beautifully in the composition. And again, values. The lighter values come forward. The medium values are here and the dark values are here. Just perfect. And look, this lighter value here comes forward. So he's got layer after layer after layer. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Overcast day, again, you all are using overcast day to your advantage, especially since it's reflections. This is a good time to mention that warm advances, cool recedes. You can see how the background is falling away. Same thing with dark values fall away, light values come toward you. Really, really nice. Who did this one?
This is Joe Farrell. That's mine, and I really am looking for some input from the group. This is the Orton effect. Some people call it the glamour glow. It's a soft focus, and I went really heavy on this one. And I wanted to, if people would put into chat, do you think it's too heavy? Or do you think it's right? If you would put that in there, I would appreciate it because I don't have a lot of people to pass it by to get an idea. And this one, I use it pretty heavy-handed, which means I did the saturation was also part of that. Mm-hmm. So if you would do that as we go on to the next ones, I would appreciate that. So thank you, Mike. And I can't believe you're absolutely right. I didn't look at it. And when you have another set of eyes, you find something. Those two sticks sticking up from the roof. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me throw my 2 cents in there. If you wanted this to look dreamy, you use the right amount.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Okay. Reflecting winter. Beautiful use of lines and layers. One thing I might suggest is try the black slider. There's a black and white. Try the black slider to give a little more pop, or even the contrast slider. See if that does anything. The contrast slider just makes the light lighter and the dark darker, but the light can't get much lighter here. So give that a shot, and maybe you'll have a lot more interest. You can see down here that there's interest. Now, if you wanted this to look cold, and that's why you went with a higher key, then you were successful. I like your use of lines. You have verticals, you have diagonals, you have horizontals. So very, very good there. Again, it looks like it's probably an overcast day. The shadows look really light. Technically, it looks a little bit soft, but that may be because of the preset or the filter that you put over it. Maybe a pencil drawing filter. It's nice when people give something a shot and put it in to see what comes of it. So it's good to try something new for sure. Maybe try a little more contrast up here so that it's a little bit more differentiated. The shadows look great. Your composition is good. And that's about it for me. I'm just suggesting some contrast. Who did this one?
Mike, it's mine, Mary.
Very cool, Mary.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for your suggestions. And as far as the trees go, I mean, I had nothing to do with those lines or the angles or anything. They were there. I never thought of, I noticed now that these are much darker in the bottom, but I didn't realize that until you said something. But what I did basically was I just used the clarity a little bit. I converted it from color, which I liked, but I for some reason, I like this black and white one better than the color one. And I will take your suggestion on trying to up the darkness on this on the other part.
So it's not like a pencil drawing filter or anything like that?
No, it was just the clarity and just me playing around with it. God knows what I did. I don't even know what I do sometimes.
You need to take copious notes, Mary.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm going to give it a shot at some point, you know.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Mike, before you start in, let me just say thank you to everybody that's responded on the chat with your thoughts on my image. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. 13 is Autumn Bridge. I guess I don't need to say it, but I will anyway. It's rich, beautiful colors. And again, I know I've said it 100 times, but the orange blue thing is just a thing of beauty. It's a great complementary color scheme. And these complementary colors, red and green, purple and yellow, orange and blue, appear in nature so often. So often. The composition is good. You have some framing in the front, which adds some dimension, gives some depth. So very nice there. Right over here, you have a couple either dust spots or spots on the river. If you would wipe those out, they won't draw anybody's attention, especially if you print it. The wow factor is really, really good. The background is slightly soft, which is absolutely perfect. It's known as atmospheric perspective. You also have linear perspective, which is two lines converging at a vanishing point. So very nice there. In fact, we conclude the reflection in that too. Repeated shapes, curves. It's a compositional gold mine is really what it is. It's very, very slightly soft here on my screen, but that doesn't hurt a thing really in this image because that makes the bridge pop even more, and that's where everybody's going to want to look. Golden, beautiful light. I'm thinking it might be morning because these are kind of pinkish. The photographer will have to let me know that. Oops. Let's see. I'm wondering if there's a teeny weeny glow on this, in which case it's perfectly appropriate. So beautiful shot, great color, nice and clear and clean, good composition, good use of color, very, very nice. Whose is this?
This is George, and thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Is this in Wrightsville?
This was shot in the late afternoon. Matter of fact, 45 minutes later, I was shooting a full moon in the same location.
Oh my gosh. Well, it shows that I'm not out of bed often for the morning light since I don't recognize it. Okay. 14 is Time and Again. The idea here is beautiful. The idea is beautiful. And I also noticed that you did the 10 after 10 with the hands, which is all the watch advertisements and clock advertisements have it 10 after 10, because that then showcases the logo, is my understanding why they always do that, because there's generally a logo in between and they form a boundary around the logo so everybody notices. Again, composition. A couple suggestions I might have is this cloth here. I'm not sure that's necessary for you. I realize what happens is this and these black lines kind of disappear into the black in the background, but you can lighten that background by lighting it. And that way it'll be not quite as strong of a black, and then maybe this will pick up better. So consider that, or replace this with gray, with a light gray. Let's see. The hot spots, I don't suggest like trying to remove them. What I would do is clone over them, maybe 10, 15%. If you try to darken them, they get to be this icky gray kind of look, but maybe just a clone with what's beside it at, 10, 15%, so that they're still there, but they're not quite solid white. Let's see. But really, considering the setup and the light, only having those two spots is really an achievement for sure. The composition's a little bit confusing because this is cut off that we don't quite recognize what it is. This is tremendous. The reflection, the pickup, really good. It looks like you threw some kind of a little filter on it to make it look vintage or antique. And that looks appropriate for this shot for sure. The lighting for this subject, as I said, is very good. The texture or whatever your treatment is very appropriate. So my only suggestions here would be to consider your background. Consider your background, because like I said, with the backgrounds, it's all about the value because they'll jump forward for you. Okay, who did this one?
Hey, Mike, Dave Marchetto. Thanks so much for the comments.
You're welcome.
I thought the hands meant a smiley face.
Actually, I have read that too. Maybe I'm too cynical.
Mike, here's the quick question. Harsh lighting aside, if I look at the histogram there's nothing blown out on the whites, if you take my word for it. So if I were going to print this, is there ink that's going to transfer and maybe help a print, or is this more or less unprintable for a number of reasons, maybe because of the specular highlights?
Well, what will happen, Dave, is the ink set has no white ink. So what happens is where there's pure white, the paper shows. The printer will use the white of the paper to create white in the image. So that's why I suggested cloning at 10 or 15%, because then the printer will put a little bit of ink there and it won't be just the paper showing through because there is no white ink.
That's perfect. Thanks so much. We really appreciate the review, Mike.
Okay, good. Thanks. Mojo and Ivy. What does a photographer do well? They definitely reveals the personalities of the dogs. And that's really what an animal portrait should do. My suggestion here is one that I made before. Shoot as loose as you can and then crop it later. Now, there could have been a door right to the right of the dog on the right. There's no way for me to know that, but shoot looser and then crop in. Also, I mentioned pixelation before. You're fighting pixelation on this one as well. Try it smaller and see how that works out. One other thing, if you're used to cloning, if you know how to clone, you can take care of this up here as a reflection of a vehicle that doesn't do anything for your image. Again, the pixelation is important for you to learn about, to understand. It's what's known as pixels per inch, or in printing, dots per inch. And it's how many little tiny squares are in an inch, a square inch. The more there are, the better your print will look. You're a little bit tight here on the right, close to the eye. Let's see, the car I already mentioned. Your lighting was good, actually. And if you use the reflection to your advantage, again, the warm colors and the cool colors. Good work there. So try to resize it, try to make it smaller and see if you have less pixelation. Okay, who did this one?
I did, Mike. This is Carla Maddox.
Hi, Carla.
Hi. Yes, this is a photo of our two dogs looking out the window at me as if to say, hey, Mom, don't leave me here. I don't want to stay here. But anyway, the railing on the porch made it kind of like a crib for them, a playpen.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then with the pixelation, but I can see it here in their eyes, especially Mojo's, I'm reflected.
Right.
Taking the picture. So yeah, I understand we'll be able to do some generative fill on that car. And like you said, make it smaller.
Okay, see how that works for you.
Yes. So, all right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, now I talked with the photographer earlier in the week about this, and what he said was he wanted some suggestions. Now, the first thing I have to say is this is a photograph that was taken in a very difficult situation. I'm guessing it's Penn's Cave, but we'll see. This is water. This is the water line. This is the reflection of this. So it's a tough spot for sure. So my suggestions to try to make something out of this is, number one, to crop. I like this shape, and it leads over into here. And this is kind of like a add-on. So the first thing I would consider is a crop. The second thing I would try is a noise reduction, or it's not really pixelated, but it's noisy, because you had to have a super high ISO because you're in a cave. So try a noise reduction and afterwards sharpen it. I would also desaturate slightly, because this looks like it was lit artificially, which it was. So one other thing is I would try to lighten the bottom to differentiate it more from the top. Or you can go the other way around, because a lot of times the reflection looks darker than the actual original. So the steps I would try to take here is to crop. I would run it through noise reduction, then sharpen, then slightly desaturate. The colors are kind of harsh. And then try to either lighten or darken the bottom to differentiate between the two and see what you can come up with. It's not sharp, but I'm hoping, you were probably in a boat moving. So I'm hoping that the noise reduction will help, and then the sharpening will help even more. The composition is pretty cool, actually. It's not your usual layers of a yard and a mountain, and so that's pretty cool. It's noisy, so the noise reduction will help with that. As far as the lighting goes, considering the circumstances you were in, I think you did pretty well. One thing, you probably tried black and white already, but give that a shot. And then hit it with some pretty good contrast and see what happens there. Creativity wise, you did good.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Basically, this is probably the worst picture I've ever submitted, but I didn't submit it to get applause. I submitted it because I want to know how one should go about taking pictures in a cave, or alternatively, should you just forget it? Just enjoy the experience and don't even try. Because there's other color. You're right, I tried it in black and white. That didn't do much. Anyway, if anyone has any advice as to what to do taking pictures in a cave, I would sure like to hear it.
Well, the other hard thing about this is you're on a boat.
Nope, I was on my feet.
Oh, okay. Well, then find something to lean on. Oh, wait, maybe you're not allowed.
Yeah, is it worth the effort?
George, this is Joe Farrell. This has given me an idea, given us an idea for a great trip over to Indian Echo Caverns in Hummelstown. And those caverns are really cool inside. So that would be a great place for us to practice this.
Yeah, but what would you practice at it?
Well, when you get in there, you'll see it's a lighting and all kinds of things.
George, give it a shot. I mean, it's nearly impossible, but see if you can come up with any of my suggestions make sense to you.
Yeah, okay. The noise didn't bother me because, well, it's a pretty grainy stuff anyway. I mean, it's stalactites and stalagmites, and they're grainy, so that didn't bother me.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just whether it's worth the effort. But thanks.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't come up with anything better. Okay, 17 is Egret in the Morning Mist. What the photographer did well was hit this at the perfect moment. Your timing is very, very good. Your composition is very, very good. Again, there's something called the golden ratio or the golden mean that you may have seen the curve that follows a line something like this, and then it gets smaller sections and smaller and smaller. Absolutely beautiful use of high school geometry, which we all sat and wondered, why are we learning this? You caught the moment, good composition, very, very nice. I'm still debating on these because they're not enough to interfere, but yet I noticed them. So I'm going to let that up to the photographer as to whether to remove it or not, because it is part of the background and it does push you back into the background. So I'm undecided there. Wow factor is super. Your exposure is really good. And many of you used overcast to your advantage today. You can see that there's detail in the white, and that's not easy. So that looks really good. Again, triangulation. Use of a triangle in composition is really quite nice. And you've got it here too, of course, just the opposite. Let's see, rule of thirds. The spots behind is smooth overcast light. The details in the white. I like the warm color scheme. That's very nice as well. I do have one question that I'll ask here in a minute. And I also think I looked closely at this. I'm not sure if running it through a noise reducer would ruin your background or not, because there is some color back here, but yet there are things back there that are creating that color. So I'm undecided on that. One thing I do want to check is the sharp line here on the reflection. I could be completely wrong about what caused it, but I'll wait and hear from the photographer. But it's a great shot. It's definitely a great shot. The background is nice. The feathers are detailed, so good work there. Oops, who is that?
That's mine, Kurt Wilkie. That was taken at Long Arm Dam over in Hanover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the noise reduction part, I refrained from using it. I thought about it, definitely thought about it, but it would take away that graininess of the misty and fog. So I stayed away from it on this one here.
Okay.
Which actually kills me because I like everything tack sharp.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the edge there, I don't know. That's just part of the reflection. It's
Okay.
nothing that I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
love
there's nothing
comments. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Nice shot anyway.
I have.
Yes.
I have one comment. I hope the person who did the red-winged blackbird, which I think is great, I hope they frame that. It'll be a great conversation starter.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the spring when everybody can't wait to see them.
Yeah, I hope they frame it.
Okay, number 18 is Fall Splendor at Fuller Lake. Obviously you did the right thing with the light. You caught it at a great time. As far as suggestions with software, I know these are part of it. They're leaves or something, but I'd pull them out anyway because they're way brighter than any of the rest of them. I'd pull that one out and these three at least. Your nice rich colors, good work there. Your focus is good. There's detail everywhere, which means your exposure is very, very good. It's kind of a combination of a symmetrical and an asymmetrical composition, because you've got just a perfect match up here, and then over here you don't. So the weight of this is nice here, takes you right in. The path takes you right down the split rail fence and over. So good work there with your composition. Again, the white spots I would remove. Your lighting is beautiful, and I've said it 100 times, but it's worth saying. The orange and blue thing is just beautiful. Maybe, I don't know. I thought about maybe dropping the bottom crop a little bit more so that it makes the bottom half more weighty than the top, but that's completely up to you. Whichever side you want to be more important, you can give a little more weight to. But it's a great shot. And you can see how the brighter value attracts your attention more so than the others. Okay, who did this one?
Dennis Baker here. Thanks, Mike, for the comments.
Okay.
Yeah, with the mirror type reflection, I was looking for it to be symmetrical, top to bottom. So I tried to, I put the horizon right in the middle, which, other than a reflection shot, I wouldn't ordinarily do. So it's a pretty standard shot, tripod mounted H3, I think a 3-shot HDR.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That explains that that explains the detail in these little pockets too, then.
Help bring out, right.
Okay, good. 19 is Fall Colors. Again, using an overcast day to your advantage. It's as well exposed. It's a good vision, meaning you saw something that some people would not. As far as like the colors and the grays go, if you want that misty look, you've got it. If you want a little more pop, pull up on the contrast or the vibrance slider and see if it gets to more be more bright, unless that's not what you want, because this does have a calm, serene, cooler feel, which, as you know, the cooler colors are calmer and more serene, the blues and the greens. So check your sharpness. It seemed a little bit soft, but again, that could definitely be because of the because of seeing it on the screen. I like that it's balanced a little bit more toward the forest. It's weighted a little more toward the forest so that we know that we look at the forest and then see the reflection. Overcast lighting, use of warm and cool colors, very, very good. I mentioned the contrast. Let's see. Please remove those right there because they seem to hop out toward us. These don't, because they're not the white value that they are. So you're good to go there. It's a good shot. Who did this one?
Well, the photographer was Don Uvik, and it appears that he's not with us this evening.
Okay. Reflections in color. Now, on my template that I use, the number one thing says, what did the photographer do well? And I put that what you did well was you went crazy. And that is something that an artist can always have the option to do, to just cut loose, try something brand spanking new. But you also held on to some tenets of composition, because the boathouse here, I'm guessing it's a boathouse, anchors the entire thing, the entire composition. You may have been influenced by Andy Warhol or some other abstract artist that you like. One thing I would suggest is that you desaturate just a little bit, because what's happening is I'm losing track of your anchor in your composition. And if you desaturate, it may bring these lines out a little bit more. I don't mean drive it toward black and white. I mean, just take the tiniest bit back and see if that makes your details show up better. I like the fact that you're using vertical lines and horizontal lines. You've got both, which is nice. You've got some repeated shapes here. And here, a little bit of triangulation there. The color I know is very important to you in this image, but I think if you desaturate a little bit, it will balance a little better. At least give it a try, see what you think. This is also very cool. It shows that you have done more to the actual image itself. And I also like the warm and the cool combinations. This little pop of red really jumps. You've got some warm colors down here. So really, as far as creativity goes, you gave it a shot. You absolutely gave it a shot. And it's pretty cool. It's definitely pretty cool. Who did this? Oh, I hope they're here.
What's that?
No?
What's that?
Rod, is that you?
Yeah, go ahead, Rod. Let's see. You'll need to unmute yourself, Rod.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Rod, just send me the $5 because I forgot to unmute myself earlier.
Twice.
Yeah, this was from our Lake Tobias trip a few weeks ago. There's a little pond right outside the parking lot. And I actually made this into black and white. And because it kind of gave me more of like an oriental feel to it. But then at the last minute, I thought I ran it through a smart photo editor and just played with their presets. And this was one of the presets, and I liked what it did as far as the colors. But yeah, I can see maybe desaturating the boathouse in the middle there.
It doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to make it kind of jump out a little.
Yeah. Well, thanks
Rod,
for your
you're
comments.
freaking out, buddy.
Yeah, it's my middle name.
Very cool. Okay, 21 is much time for reflection. The things that the photographer did well here, the framing in the top right, or sorry, top left is really nice. It gives a foreground, and then the sky gives a background, and of course there's the middle ground. You are differentiated between the subject and the reflection. You can see that the reflection's a little darker. Be careful again with the resolution. We talked about pixelation before, and it's come up a couple times, so be careful with that. It comes out of the camera, like I said, usually at 72 dots an inch, and then you have to make some changes in your software. Maybe a bit more contrast and vibrance, but if you're going for the infrared look, then you don't want to do that. Let's see. Okay, I mentioned the pixelation. I like the corners, how this one balances this one, and the dark one balances the light one. I like that they're kind of opposite, the light and the dark, so that works out well. And this, I know you're going to think I'm ridiculous, but when something is cut off around the edge, even something as small as that, it can be a problem for a viewer who's trying to work their way around the outside of the image. So if something's halfway on and halfway off, get it out of there. Okay, my suggestion would be what I suggested before with the pixelation, is to try a resize, make it smaller, or up the pixels per inch. Usually when you print, it's 300 or 360. So I try to go with that always. Sometimes it makes for a big file, but it'll look better when you print it. Who did this one?
Mike, thank you for your critique. That's mine, Chuck Hilburn.
Oh, okay. Oh, you made it. Good.
Well, yes, thank you for putting me near the end. I was looking at my pictures to select for this reflection, and I wanted to try and get both literal interpretation of reflection and a figure too. So it was kind of black and white was my choice because I wanted it to be like timeless and kind of reflect back. And the day just, it's out in Ephrata on the Calico Creek, and it's in my nephew's backyard. And when I walked out and I saw this, I just had to have a picture of it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
The reflection was perfect. There was no current in the water at all, so it just reflected. My screen showed it a little sharper than what I'm seeing here, but
okay,
I don't know.
I wonder about that sometimes with these on the digital side. So okay, you're good then with that. Okay.
So, but I appreciate the comments, and I like anything else, I always seem to have something on the edge, so I'll get rid of those. And when I printed it, it printed a little sharper than this too. So I don't know.
Okay, good.
But thank you for the comment, Mike.
Sure. And after we get off the air here, you can tell your wife that you said I'm to mind my own business. It's sharp already.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And that's it.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Let's open it up for questions or comments. Anybody have anything they want to say?
Mike, that was an excellent review.
Oh,
Really
thanks. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mike or any one of the photographers?
Hey, Mike, quick question for you. You talk about 72 DPI coming out of the camera. Is that for JPEG or RAW?
On the Fuji, it comes out of that for RAW.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but then it's gigantic. It's like 84 inches by 65 inches or something like that.
Gotcha.
So, but I'm sure somewhere you can reset that, but I just have never done it.
Okay, thank you.
That's interesting. See, my understanding was that a conversation about DPI is meaningless unless you're printing. When you're looking at a digital image on the screen, that really doesn't apply.
Because there's pixels per inch and there's dots per inch. That's two different things.
Well, yeah, I understand. And the dots per inch on a monitor is about 100 standard, between 72 and 100 dots per inch. And you can't change that.
Right. It'll reset to that no matter what. If you're putting something online, 72 is fine.
Well, as these images are, they're all being displayed on a device. So they're all being displayed by that device at that,
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but when you go to print, then the dots per inch become critical in terms of getting a pixelated or not pixelated image. But yeah, we can have a discussion about that sometime. It gets a little complex. It's because of the topic of resolution. but it is interesting. Okay, anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay,
Super
very good.
insightful critique.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys. And thanks, Mike. Appreciate your comments. Guys, again, I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
All right.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank
I
you,
hope it
Mike.
made- Hope it made sense.
Always does. Thank